Hey, welcome to the first ever NintendoFuse GameChat. We are here to just chat about games. It's as simple as that. I am joined today by Barry. How's it going, Barry?
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Yeah, and I'm also joined by Hassan, our podcast host.
What's up?
So the show is just all about our game discussion, what we've been playing, and today we only have one game. It's a big game. We're going to jump into The Legend of Zelda: The Breath of the Wild for Nintendo Switch. So, Zelda, Breath of the Wild, we've waited a long time to get to this point to actually play this game. Give me your first impressions real quick, just off the cuff. What do you guys think, Barry?
Well, I started actually on the handheld, and I've been playing mostly on the TV, but I did start in the handheld, and I was just blown away from that very opening scene when you walk out and the title appears and you pan around. Even on the handheld, I was just jaw drop. Oh my god, I'm in for the adventure of my lifetime, and I can't wait.
Cool. I totally agree, yeah. What do you think, Hassan?
Yeah, same. The opening part was actually what I got to play at the demo event in DC. So, but I mostly played on the handheld so far because usually my wife will be playing on the TV and I'll just be sitting next to her, kind of playing on the handheld, and we're kind of like talking back and forth about our experiences and everything. And it's really cool. Like I love the game. It looks beautiful. It's so much fun, and just it's awesome.
Yeah, I think that it brings back nostalgia memories for me when I was playing Ocarina of Time with my friend. Like we'd be calling up each other on the phone and say, okay, where are you? And I feel like that's every time I've talked to someone and lately they're playing Zelda, I'm like, okay, where are you right now? And we giving each other little tips here and there. Just the other day, actually, this weekend at PAX East, someone had convinced, because I've been holding back and I haven't been really like progressing in the game as much as I know you two have, because I've been waiting to try to get as many shrines as I can before I start attacking, all the rest of the game. And someone was just like, dude, you've got to go after it. You've got to. It's so awesome, especially after the first one. I'm like, I'm not sure about the rest of them, but after the first of these things, like, I'm going to try to not spoil it for anybody. Yeah, it's just like, okay, I'm convinced, I'm going to go after it. And so that's what I've been trying to actually tackle today. In terms of the graphics, let's talk about the graphics of the game a little bit, because in 720 and 720p on the handheld, running at 60 frames per second, but on the TV it upscales to 900p, I believe. It tries to still do the 60 frames per second. There's a little bit of stuttering here and there. What are overall impressions just about the look of the game? What do you think, Barry?
Well, since I've played 98%, I'm going to say, on the TV, I had a few hiccups. I did notice it, especially when fire's on screen. There's a little bit of frame rate drop, and I did have one actual crash that did occur. Granted, my Switch was on for a while, so that very well could have been that. However, that's, I'm going to say total, it's probably close to 50 hours at this point. So I can count the amount of hiccups and frame rate stutters on one hand with the one crash. So that's not bad. I'm not upset. It never takes me out of the experience, really. Like, it's like, oh, that happened, whatever. Because everything else, it's just so fluid, so it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. What do you think, Hassan?
Yeah, I think I played some on the TV, and you see the frame rate, dips here and there, but it doesn't really bother me too much. I think I love the art style of the game, the whole, everything about it is so great. But on the handheld especially, because I play more portable gaming, and it looks beautiful in the handheld, and just that screen is great. Even though it's 720, it still just looks awesome, and that's kind of the primary reason I play it. If I play on the TV, it's usually more because I'm using the Pro Controller or something, which I know you can do on handheld, but it's just more convenient on the TV with that.
Yeah, it's definitely a beautiful game, and I heard people talking about the frame rate issues ahead of time, so I kind of dropped my expectations, I guess, because of it. But maybe that was a healthy thing, because now that I see it for myself, I'm like, that's not so bad. I mean, it's there, but it's really not that big of a deal. It almost kind of harkens back to the NES and SNES days when just a little stuttering on the screen. I was like, oh, nostalgia coming back to me.
Well, even you mentioned Ocarina of Time. I mean, even Ocarina of Time didn't have a perfect frame rate. There were plenty of stutters in that game, and granted, it's a game that did not age very well either in the graphical department. But I feel like people today have higher expectations and are less grateful to even have a game to be played. I mean, you have a game here that took 5+ years. It's a masterpiece, highly rated by pretty much everybody, and you're nitpicking it. Like, just be grateful you have the opportunity that these people spent hours and hours of their lives, years of their lives, developing this game, and you get to enjoy it. Life is so short. Don't pick on the littlest things. Just have fun. It's a video game.
It's like that's all they have really to pick on this game. So because it's so great, so they're like, yeah, we'll talk about the frame rate issues because that's really the only bad part of the whole game.
Yeah, it's gotten so many perfect scores, and that's such a testament to the game that even with those little frame rate issues, like, it's gotten so many perfect scores, so it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Right. Yeah, I remember, playing Ocarina of Time. I didn't even know what a frame rate issue was at the time. I didn't care. I was playing Zelda in 3D. That was so cool. And I feel like that's the kind of feeling I've gotten again from this game, because I didn't really think that Nintendo could make me feel like that again. And they have. And maybe even surpassed it. Like, have you guys kind of experienced that same sort of feeling?
Yes and no. And what I mean by that is I have a honeymoon phase with Zelda. Every Zelda game that comes out, every single one since the very beginning, I fall in love with. I'll play it. My first playthrough, I am always enamored with it. There's a Zelda magic. It just takes me away to this new world, and it's like, oh, this is the next best one. This is the next best one. And then after I've had time, and I either play it a second time or I dissect the game as a whole, it starts to fall back more into a regular place. Always behind Link's Awakening. This one might stay above Link's Awakening. Right now, I'm in a honeymoon phase. I am totally a child again. I have my graph paper with certain things. I've got my notes down for certain songs and like where different shrines might be. And I'm different when you start upgrading your gear, you need certain recipes and certain materials. And it's like, oh man, I need like 8 more fire Kisi wings. Let me write this down so I remember to go get more. And like, I'm doing that again that I haven't done in a video game in a long time. And
that's something I probably should do, because I get sidetracked so much in this game.
Yeah, well, that's just it. And it is a big game. And in terms of the open world, it's, to me, you say it reminds you of Ocarina of Time. To me, it reminds me of Zelda 1, because that was the first one. That was the open world. There was no internet. There was no, there was a guide, the NES Atlas, but that didn't come out until after, because Zelda 2 was part of that guide. So I think the NES Atlas came out like 89 or 88, but the actual game itself, you had the map that came with the game, and the map was only half filled in. So it was like, oh my god, I'm venturing into a white square here. I have no idea what to expect. And it was tricky. If you have that map, or if you played with that map, you'll know that there are certain parts of that map that they show you, but the only way to get there is by going through the areas they didn't show you. Mm-hmm. A lot of it was actually going through the Lost Woods, which back then was just a screen. No one, oh my god, how do I get through this? A lot of people also forget there was the Lost Hills too, which seems to have not carried on into other Zelda games, but there were actually 2 of those screens. And like, even that, it was like, oh my god, as simple as that solution really was, yeah, it was so cryptic, and you really had to talk with people. How the heck do you get through this? And I must have spent 8 days trying to get through the Lost Woods, because I had to get to that white part of the map where other stuff was. The power bracelet was over there, and I needed it.
Oh, confession time, I've actually never made it through any Lost Woods without looking up how to do it.
Oh,
because I don't have the patience. I try it for a while, and I'm just like, I'm going to spend 8 days on this, and I just don't have the time for that.
Well, let's see if you can actually get through the Lost Woods in this game without looking it up.
Spoiler alert.
That's
there's
not
Lost
a spoiler.
Woods. No, there's Lost Woods in every game. Yeah. Oh man, Hudson, has it brought back any nostalgia feelings for you?
I got kind of a later start to the Zelda series, I think. I'd always kind of known what it was, but I really started to get into it more with Twilight Princess, with the 3D Zeldas. and I enjoyed what I played of that. So when Skyward Sword was coming out, I was kind of getting hyped for that. Played a decent amount of it, but still never like finished it or anything. But I kind of was excited about it. Perry's like,
What an ending! What an ending! That was the best part of the game.
Of Skyward Sword or Twilight Princess?
Got Skyward Sword.
Oh, okay.
The ending with demise. I mean, and the whole beginning of the mythos. You gotta finish it.
Yeah. I'll have to at some point. There's the gold Wii remote, all that stuff. I was like, I got to get this game. I was excited about that too. The music was incredible. But I think this is the first Zelda game that I'm like 100% completely all in, and I want to finish this game. I want to play as much of it as possible. Like, I am in full force hype mode right now, because it's like, I feel that sense of adventure. Like, I really feel it with this game where there's a story, and I see the story, but I'm not in any specific rush to do it. I kind of feel like there's so much that I can go and explore, and what I love about it is that you kind of have that freedom. There's not necessarily a right or wrong. If you venture into a place where there's an enemy that you think is too dangerous for you, it may or may not be. You have the freedom to run away or try and tackle it. And that's kind of cool because, I've played it and then I've watched my wife play some levels and I've gone online and watched one or two like Let's Plays of some of the earlier stuff. And like everybody does stuff differently and I'm picking up on different things each time. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, that seems like we're never going to have the same playthrough twice. I would say, like, even there's going to be little differences, but then there can be huge differences between how people play it. I can't wait till I want to finish the game, but then I can't wait to go and see some of these speed runs because I don't want them to spoil the game for me. But I am excited to see how people just fly through this game as well because it's possible. I'm not going to do it at all. I've been taking my time way more than you guys have, but. The fact that you can just head straight to Ganon, pretty much after the bat, when the game starts, that's just crazy.
Oh yeah, I think it's like an hour and 15 minutes. And I'm with you. I really want to see the speed run, but I refuse. Yeah. And I'm not even going to go towards Ganon towards the end of the thing until I have all 120 shrines and I have, everything upgraded. Like, that's the way I am as a completionist. Like, before I go for the final, I do everything else so that when I beat the game, I can put it on the shelf and kind of go, okay, now I guess until the DLC comes out, but I'm satisfied. I don't want to beat it and then go, okay, well now I've got all this other stuff to do. Then it feels more like after work. Here it's still for me like building towards that final climatic battle and getting ready for it and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I'm excited about it.
So the whole beginning of the game, it's pretty much going to be the same for everybody. I mean, you can tackle the different shrines in the beginning in different orders and everything. But let's talk about the Great Plains. We won't get into the end of the Great Plains time in the beginning because that we do jump into spoilers for that. And maybe if we do get into that discussion, we'll make sure we alert everybody. But just your time on the Great Plains, you jumped in. I'll just start with I enjoyed a lot of what I did on the Great Plains, and it kind of felt like itself in a really good Zelda game. Like the size of the Great Plains, it was like I could spend an entire game here, yeah. And then all of a sudden it just opens up when you get to that point. But there was quite a bit. I was amazed at there's quite a bit to do in the Great Plains to even start the game off, and I didn't ever feel like you were going through basic tutorials essentially, but it didn't feel like you were going through tutorials, and I really enjoyed that. What do you guys think about your time on the Great Plains? We'll start with Hudson.
It's very cool because, like you said, it kind of is a tutorial in a way where you slowly start to walk up upon certain groups of enemies, and they kind of lay things out in a way that you can kind of try things and see if it works, and you kind of start to learn the mechanics of the game, and it's very interesting the way they did it because you do have the freedom to explore and do things, but you get to kind of practice the different components of the game. You get to start to delve into the cooking and everything. You get to all these little things that are eventually become pretty essential to as you complete the game. You really get a feel for it, and it's really cool, and it does feel very open. And I don't even know how massive this map is in the game. Even just the pieces of the map that I have so far seem huge, and I feel like I've barely even unlocked anything. So, that opening part already feels huge enough, but this game's world map is insanely big. It's crazy.
It's true. Barry, you've got a lot more unlocked than the rest of us, but what was the Great Plains like when you first started it?
To be honest with you, I hate to say this, but I didn't like being there, and I know that's going to sound like a shock. The only reason I say that is because I feel like it was all spoiled by so much coverage by Nintendo, which isn't bad on Nintendo, but it was like I felt like I've seen this before, and I went and I did what I needed to do with the Great Plains, and like you said, it was a great tutorial area. But the second I got that glider, I was like, so long, and thanks for all the
off
fish.
Of here.
Like, get me off. And right away, like one of the first things I did when I landed was I wound up running into a guardian, and I was like, oh shit. Like, excuse my language, but things are much different than on the Great Plain. Everything here is really trying to kill me, and it was just like, all right, I'm ready for adventure. Let's do this. Like, now it's survival. Before it was like kitty coaster. Now it's, death drop. Let's do this. And I haven't looked back since. I've only been back to the Great Plains like a handful of times, usually just to teleport and go someplace else. And the one you mentioned, actually, Steve, about you used to talk to your friend about Ocarina of Time, and you discuss things. I actually did that with one of my best friends. I'd called him, and he's going through the game much slower. He's literally taking it to the part of the map and exploring everything in that map, and not leaving that section until he's thoroughly explored it. And he, the first time I called him, I said, "Hey, how you doing?" He's like, "Oh, this." He's like, "Did you find any Koroks?" I said, "Yeah, I found one." He's like, "Oh, I found like 4 on the Great Plains." I'm like, what? How did I miss that?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Now you're gonna help me. Where were those 4? Like, I need to know what I was missing this whole time. And then he asked, "Oh, did you find fight the rock monster that they showed off?" I said, "No." He's like, "Oh, that was in the Great Plains. I still have yet to go and find it on the Great Plains. I fought a bunch of them elsewhere, but I never actually fought that
I didn't even realize that was on the Great Plains. Like, I guess it makes
Exactly.
sense. I haven't come across it either. I spent a lot of time around the Great Plains.
That's the whole magic of it, is like, it's there. I don't know where.
Hudson's
but he
totally
said
taken off guard. All right,
So, see,
I'm beating what I'm on right now, and I'm going back to the Great Plains to find that monster.
To be fair, beating those monsters just gets you some gems, and
I don't care. I want to see it.
Well, there's other ones. It's not the only one. There are other ones like that.
That's
quite a bit of them, actually.
It's a race of monsters, huh?
There are several bosses that are outside in the areas, like just in the plains areas, and that's one of them, the rock monsters. There's a couple others that you'll see and you'll encounter. I'm not going to spoil, but they are there, and they're all optional. Even unless you want certain shrines, there you have to fight them. But you see them, and it's like, that's a boss. I'm running away, and you totally can.
Yeah. So we'll just say a spoiler warning. We'll try to say, like, I'll put something on the bottom of the screen or something and tell you where to skip ahead to if you don't want to be spoiled past the Great Plains story. But we're gonna jump into spoiler territory a little bit here, not a ton, but a little bit. So there's your enormous warning, spoilers. All right, so let's jump into this a little bit more after you find out who the old man is. Like, what'd you guys think? What do you think, Barry?
I suspected it.
Yeah.
Since we're in spoiler territory, we could say it's the King of Hyrule. I suspected it because it looked like the King of Hyrule, which, many people will say, oh yeah, he looked like the King of Red Lions in Wind Waker. To me, he looks like the King from Zelda 2's manual, which is the first time we even saw him. He's always looked the same. But there were rumors that it might be Ganon, and I was silently hoping. Like, I wasn't trusting him the whole time. I'm like, all right, it's probably going to be Ganon. That's probably going to be the big twist. And then it wasn't. Then I was like, I felt safe. I haven't beat it. Maybe it really was Ganon in disguise. I don't know. But if it turns out that it's not Ganon, I felt like that could have been so cool, because you guys would. I don't know if Hassan, you ever played Wind Waker or not.
No, my wife. I watched her play a bunch of it, but I didn't actually play it myself.
Like, Ganondorf in that game is a very sympathetic villain. Like, he is hidden in the shadows, but he when he comes out, he's like, talks to you, and he's pretty much like, look, here's my side of it, and you almost see his side.
And
it was
then
really
you stab a sword in his head.
Yeah, at the end, yes. But like, I kind of felt like that, and there are I don't know if you've encountered the I don't know how to I don't know if I want to say it or not, but there are people, there are enemies disguised as people that are working for Ganon.
Yeah.
Oh, you've encountered that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so you've encountered that tribe. It almost feels like that. Like there's a deception there. You talk to these people, it's like, oh, you're just another person. Oh, wait, crap, you're trying to kill me.
All of a sudden they're like, ta-da!
Yeah. So I kind of hope maybe it's like that, kind of like he comes out back at the end, and it's just like, ta-da! I was playing you the whole time. You just fell right into my trap.
That could be it. What did you think, Hudson? Was it a big reveal for you, or did you see it coming?
I mean, having not played too much of the previous Zelda games, it was kind of like, oh, you're the king, okay. Like, I just kind of was like, oh, okay, I got it. I don't know that I really expected anything. I did hear the theories as well, and it could be Ganon, but I heard a bunch of things kind of tossed around. So, it just seems it's interesting just to have that character there, kind of almost guiding you in a way, but also like taunting you at times with like, oh, I'm going to give you this, glider. Oh, actually, you have to complete, multiple things first. I'm like, come on, man. Like, really? And I love the
glider, please.
You can pick from. Yeah. One of them just like, glider, please. Like, come on. Like, so that was great, just how they kind of incorporated that.
It's like, I've been asleep for 100 years. Just give the thing over, hand it over.
Right.
And he's like, I've been dead for 100 years, so take that.
You actually, Hassan, you mentioned something. The dialogue choices are really good in this game. The only thing I wish is that they actually went further. Like, this isn't necessarily a spoiler, but there's a Gerudo later on that you talk with, and you don't need to talk to her. She's just a passerby, and she's kind of like, oh my God, you're a man. Okay, what do I do here? Like kind of deal. And you have the choice of saying, goodbye, or you're the woman of my dreams. And I was like, ooh, so you're the woman of my dreams. Let's go with this. And she's like, oh, my mother told me to be wary of people who say things like that, And I'm like, oh, I wanted to see this go into a dialogue, like let Link get relationships, like let's maybe you can like get women on the side and they all like give you things. I mean, they did that in Zelda 2. You got your hearts replenished that way. I mean, come on. Link needs a little, No,
I think one of the exciting thing for me was, my wife's not a huge gamer. She's definitely a casual gamer, but she sat down and wanted to know what the story is all about. And so she like watched me playing, and that was really fun to be able to take this in together and enjoy it together. And she's like, oh, this is like a movie. I want to know what's going on. So I think so far in the story, I've been really pleased with what's going on, and it just seems like there's so much there. So jumping into, I suddenly realized there's these divine beasts that are around there, 4 of them. I've not fully tackled the first one. Hudson's got 1 under his belt. Barry, you got 2 under your belt. What do you think of that? Let's talk about the first one, since we've all pretty much been there. We all had tackled, or I'm in the middle of tackling Zora for the first one. It seems like the one that it guides you to. Lots of rain, lots of water, lots of electricity. What else is going on in those? What'd you think about that, Hassan?
Very interesting. Because for so much of the game so far up until that point, I had kind of encountered, a certain number of types of enemies, but as you continue into the game, now you get the enemies that have the electricity and, the effects that has. Okay, they hit you, you drop some of your weapons, it's like, oh, great. So I'm scrambling around. So at first it's kind of that adjustment period as you kind of enter this new territory and see how it all plays out and that sort of thing. But and it's really cool to kind of continue that story and get into a whole new area and talk to new people and see what those characters are like with the Zora, getting into the actual divine beast, which is certainly a beast of a challenge compared to the shrines, because the shrines are pretty, well, some can be difficult, but they're much shorter and smaller, and then you get into this divine beast and it's a bit more intense with the puzzle solving there.
Yeah. Barry, what'd you think?
I actually kind of like the change in dungeons in a way, and at the same time, I miss the old school dungeons. What's interesting is that there's not a lot of enemies in the dungeons. It's really a giant puzzle. It's like the shrines, the little shrines. There's a couple guardian enemies occasionally in there, but it's not really about combat. It's about puzzle solving, and that's what these bosses or these dungeons are. They are not about the combat. They are 98% about the puzzle solving. The enemies that are there are usually little nothings outside of the boss, and the whole thing is trying to figure out how to get to 5 specific points in a dungeon. The unique thing is that there's a moving part in each of these dungeons. The Zora one, its moving part is tied to so many puzzles, and one of the ways you have to tackle it, you have to literally think outside the box and leave the dungeon pretty much at one point. I don't want to say how. San's shaking his head. He knows what I'm talking about. And it took me a while to figure that out. Like, oh, I can do this. Okay, this is kind of cool. The second one the second one that I tackled, I should say, maybe your last, but it used a standard Zelda type trope of rotating. The movement was rotating, so like the whole dungeon actually tilted and turned, and you can only do certain things at certain directions. And I'm like, oh, these are cool. And I'm assuming 3 and 4 also have some kind of moving mechanic, but they're all about just finding 5 points, and that's the puzzle. The bosses, on the other hand, are tough. Like, they're some of the toughest Zelda bosses that I've encountered, and it doesn't help when your weapons start breaking on you. It's like, oh no, this is bad, but I think they get easier over time as you get better weapons.
Yeah. All right, so I feel like we've talked enough spoilers. We can kind of bring people back a little bit. Barry, you just mentioned this in the spoiler category. I'll bring it back up just a bit because the weapons breaking. What do you guys think about that? I hated it. I absolutely hated it because you get into this fight and all of a sudden I found myself in a couple fights and I've broken everything that I have that could take this guy down. I'm starting to eventually throw bombs or whatever else at him. Like, I got nothing left. This is going to take forever. And eventually I died and I was like, I got to give up on this. I'll come back later. I hate giving up. I hate it. But I was like, I got nothing left. And I tried it like 3 or 4 times and I just couldn't do it. And I've left. That's the times when I realized I don't like the weapons breaking. Now, I know you can get more powerful ones later, but in those sort of circumstances, I absolutely do not like the way the weapons break. Barry, do you think the same thing, or are you actually pretty fond of it?
I agree with you. I am not I've never been fond of weapon durability in any RPG. I like to get the weapon and boom, have it, and choose what I want to do with it. Now I know there's a wide variety of different weapons, and a lot of them suck, and a lot of them are really good. I think the biggest complaint I had was that I ran into situations where, oh my god, I'm down to like just a few left, or I'm just like picking up a crappy weapon just from an enemy and I'm just using that until it breaks. The stronger weapons do have longer durability, thank God, but I've also found myself relying on bombs a lot more. Like, oh, there's gemstones in the wall, I'm just going to use the bombs and then chase them down because I don't want to ruin my weapon.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I've taken down bosses that I didn't want to use my weapons, just running in a circle throwing bombs. And it took me like 20 minutes, but I'm like, I don't care. This is how I'm doing this. But once you upgrade your weapon inventory using Korok seeds, which I recommend you do right away as much as you can, and it does get expensive, but once you have more space, you can then have a little bit of leeway by stockpiling a few really good weapons and having them as backup. Because when I was talking to my friend, he's like, oh, make sure to have a leaf, and make sure to have a torch, and make sure to have like a hammer, and have all these things. You never know what you're going to come across. I'm like, I don't have the room for that.
Where do I put them all?
Those are weak, and now I'm like, okay, now I can have, like I have a fire weapon, so I can use as a torch, and I've got a leaf in case I need, and I have the flexibility. Yeah. So I think in the beginning it's very restricting, and it's supposed to be, but once you start upgrading, it's better. I haven't had this problem with bows or shields. I've had like one shield break on me, and bows I've had a few break, but I find so many of them that I don't use the bow as often as the swords or the hammers or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a problem with those weapons.
Yeah. How's the new like your weapons break?
I kind of similar to Barry. You know, I'm a little mixed on it. Like, I think my biggest issue is I wish it would last a little longer, whatever the durability is set at, I think. Because I don't so much mind them breaking because there are limited inventory slots and you come across so many weapons that most of the time I'm getting that prompt, you can't add this to your inventory. And I'm like, all right, let me hit the little inventory button, go in, what do I need to drop? You know, so, but I think the issue is just how quick they can break sometimes. But finding the weapons, like I got the amiibo and they like are amazing at giving a whole bunch of stuff. So those are useful. But I think I also, like Steve said, I'm relying on bombs for like everything, you know, like I won't spoil anything, but there's one shrine in particular. It took me a half hour. And I initially went in. I didn't expect it to be that difficult. I'm using all my weapons, and in the span of like 2-3 minutes, everything is broken and I'm dead. And I'm like, what? So I tried again. Same thing happened. Tried a third time. Same thing. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm not going to use like anything. I just used bombs the entire time, little by little by little. It took me like a half hour, and I finally beat this thing, and I was so happy.
Man.
Was this one of the tests?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was it
now I gotta. Was it a minor, a moderate, or a major?
Well, I actually think I ended up doing the major one first, and then I went to the moderate one and minor. So I ended up doing the bombs for all of them. Because I went to the major one, I was like, this thing is so difficult. And, you know, I actually didn't realize, and maybe this is dumb of me, I didn't realize that you could leave the shrines once you're in it. So I just, every time I got to a shrine, I was like, I'm just determined to beat it. So I just spent a while, and I figured it out, and I beat the thing with bombs. So I got good at it. So by the time I got to the moderate and then the minor one, I'm like, this is a piece of cake. But I feel like I'm using bombs so much to open up crates. Because I use weapons, and I'm like, the weapon breaks. And I'm like, this is a stupid crate. Like, I should just be able to throw it, and that's it. You know? So, like, I'm using bombs for everything.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
See, it's funny because the first shrine I ever turned back on was one of the majors.
Yep.
And I tried it for about 30-40 minutes, and I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm just not ready for this. I'll come back. And then I came across another major, and I just immediately, I'm not even trying this right now. Then I came across a third major, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to try it. And I beat it, and I'm like, all right, now I'm going back and doing the other two. And I was able to do them. But yeah, there are multiple. It's not just one, you know, major, moderate, and minor, and you're done. There are multiple of all three tiers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get your bomb usage ready.
I actually happened to just find them minor, moderate, major in order, and but yeah, that was the one that I lost so many weapons, and I tried it for like 30-45 minutes, and my wife's like, are you really? Just give up, just go back. I'm like, I'm not giving up. Finally I did, but I didn't have the patience to just throw bombs at it for like half an hour, though. Maybe I should have.
I threw bombs. I'll tell you a little secret on those arrows. Like at a point, it does like a spinning, like it does a laser, and like you see like air drifts come up. If you use your paraglider to fly into the air and pull out your bow, you slow motion, and you can just hit it really a lot of times as long as you have stamina with the arrows and fire arrows and electric arrows, and you take off a lot of HP.
I forget about that.
See, I
whole
was
thing.
throwing the bomb, and it's like floating in there, and then boom. All right, wait for it to regenerate. One by one.
Oh, that's great.
See, there's multiple ways to do it. Which
There is.
It's
great,
true.
You know?
Yep.
There is. There absolutely
Very
is.
efficient. I saved all my weapons, so
That's true. But you wasted a lot of time.
yeah, that is true.
So I tossed a couple extra arrows out of the way and saved myself 30 minutes. Then I used an amiibo and got the arrows back again.
I think that's the biggest thing. That I love the fact that, you can just toss these on, and I honestly, I played through, I think, the entire Great Plains section and didn't even use an amiibo until all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, I can use those things. And so I started grabbing them, and one day I went through all the amiibo I have, which is not as many as you guys, but I still have quite a bit, and like that was awesome. But I pretty much just have like the Zelda one sitting beside me now, and I'll just throw those ones in there because you get so much more. But it's pretty cool to just really have all the items and everything, especially like food, because now you have to go and eat to replenish your hearts and everything else. So just to be able to have a lot of meat and fish and everything else that come from the amiibos is pretty cool.
I just wish the amiibos gave you bugs, because I find those are the most annoying. And you need those for upgrades. You need a lot of bugs. And like, I'm at the point where I'm just putting on stealth suit, and I have the tracker tracking a particular bug, and I'm just creeping through these ginormous plane looking for this one particular bug so I could upgrade my armor. And it's like, oh my god, like, this is painful at this point. So collect those bugs when you see them. Don't run everywhere.
Bugs. Good. Okay, I've been collecting bugs. I didn't know why I was collecting bugs, but I'll keep collecting. Cool. Well, final thoughts about Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. How about you, Barry? Let's start with you.
Captivating, if I had to put it one word. I'm going through a very, very difficult part of my life right now, and I don't get to play it as much. I would have had it beaten already, just because of how captivating it is. But it has been a wonderful escape from reality, and probably the game I needed at this point. So it is a masterpiece in my opinion, and definitely a world that is worth exploring. Even if you don't like combat, just exploring the world, it's so beautiful. And I'm glad that they actually stayed away from certain tropes. I mean, there's still the fire area and the ice area and the desert, which are normal, but then they added new ones, like there's a rainforest, and I was like, whoa, this is new for a Zelda, this is cool. And then there's like a tundra, and there's, different lakes, and there's, rivers, and there's forests, and several different types of forests. I'm like, it's so varied, and everything looks so beautiful, and it is a paradise. It really is. Even with Guardians trying to kill you, it's still a paradise.
That's true. Hassan, your final thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything about this game is just so much fun. I mean, just visually, it looks amazing. It's fun to just explore, to conquer these different shrines, and go through the story, which is engaging as well. Every bit of it is just captivating, as Barry said. It really is, and it just feels like such a solid game overall. And to be honest, I don't know how they can top this one. Like, I've been thinking, like, what else could they do? Like, I honestly have no idea. And I feel like whatever the next game is, like, I feel like it might be a disappointment, just because I mean, this is already, like, you just make a bigger world, but this is already so big. Like, what do you? I don't know. That's
why they have the expansion pass right now, because they don't know either.
Right.
Yeah,
it's already big enough, but they're going to add more to it.
Yeah.
See, I think one thing that's awesome about this, which a lot of people haven't talked about, is that there are a ton of Zelda references too. If you look at the map, there are places named, so many places named, and a lot of them are named after previous Zelda games, or and it's so cool to see different things. I mean, like, Raru is mentioned, and you have Koholint is mentioned, and it's an island, so it's like, oh, that's so cool. Like Link's Awakening, and there's something else of Awakening, and there's the standard callbacks, but there's just so many little ponds. Like, look at all the names, like the ponds, and they're just little references, and it's like, to me, that just oozes with charm as a Zelda fan, and I'm so appreciative of that.
Yeah, I'd agree with you guys. The captivating, maybe overwhelming on top of it as well. There's sometimes that I'm like, wow, I've got to eventually get back to this main story and defeat Ganon. I know that. I love when you first get that objective. It's like, new objective: defeat Ganon or destroy Ganon. I'm like, all right, let me get back to that, because I don't think I'm ready yet. But even as I'm going around, there's just so much, and I'm gonna have to start taking notes, like Barry does, like, to remind myself what was I doing again. Like, I feel like I have ADD, like, just a flashy thing over there, and then I'm running in a different direction, and then like an hour later, like, what was I originally going to do? Oh yeah, where was that again? And I was going to do that.
That's a good thing though, because that's when you go into adventure mode and you just sort of explore. However, there is the adventure log, and you could go to whatever quest you wanted to do, and if you click it it'll put the marker for you on the map to help you out, so you don't get totally lost.
As long as that adventure was given to me. I find myself doing my own adventures all the time.
Yes.
I wonder if I can climb that mountain. I bet I can.
Well, see, talking about that, I don't know if you've gotten to the village to the southeast. I forget what it's called, with the windmill and the dye shop is there.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been over there? I think
Yep.
the story sends you over
Yep.
there, actually, because that's where the laboratory is. You have to go to the laboratory. When doing that part of the quest, I was looking at the yellow marker, but I hadn't gotten the tower yet, so I had no idea where I was going. So I wound up somehow, instead of heading like southeast along the path which you're supposed to go, I wound up northeast somehow, and I wound up on the mountain over there, the ice mountain. And I'm like, I have to go up this thing, and I've got no ice. Like, I got the ice closed, but it's not enough. So I'm popping potions, and I'm running, and I'm running, and I'm running, and enemies are trying to kill me. I don't even want to tackle them because I'm on a clock. I have no map. And I wound up getting to the top, and there's a spring there. And if you've been to that spring, you know there's a dragon fight there. So my wife is watching me trying to figure out taking out this dragon with like 4 hearts. And I'm like, I'm trying. And I did it, and I succeeded, and I was like, oh, wow, that was. And then I realized I totally was the wrong way, but I had my own adventure.
Yeah.
And I think it was so much cooler than, oh, well, now I got the story. Like, I think just today I wound up actually getting the quest for that shrine. And
Nice.
It said shrine quest, and then immediately it came back complete. Like, I did it without getting the official quest for it. So you can still do some of these without ever actually obtaining the quests.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah,
It
for
allows
sure.
you to not be like, oh, well, you normally would do this, but you missed this one NPC in this one town. You know, you're not restricted to that.
Right.
You can figure things out on your own, which I love.
Cool. Well, that pretty much wraps us up for this first game chat, all about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. We'll be back in a couple weeks with another game or two to discuss, and so make sure you check us out, subscribe, and all that sort of thing, so that we can get all our videos to you. We do a monthly podcast on top of this, and we're starting another new show that Barry's going to be hosting soon, so make sure you do subscribe to NintendoFuse so you can get all that straight to your subscription channels. And I guess make sure you hit that little bell thing, because like I guess YouTube doesn't sometimes get your stuff to you, so make sure you hit the bell too. So thanks for joining us today.
Don't forget to go to NintendoFuse.com for more Nintendo content.
Check it out.